The glass tower was silent, just like my heart had been for 5 long years. From the top floor of my empire, I looked out over the city that I conquered, a city that cost me everything, and everyone I ever truly loved. My hands rested on the cold mahogany edge of Clara's old writing desk. It was the last piece of furniture remaining in my private residence before the movers arrived to clear it out. I had built a fortress of steel and stone to hide my bitterness, ever since the day I threw her out into the rain. I remember the headline as if it were carved into my flesh. The scandal. The leaked formulas. The blackouts in our security network. I called her a traitor, a leech, a calculated spy sent by my rivals to tear down everything I built. She stood before me in this very room, tears streaming down her pale cheeks, begging me to look past the evidence. But my pride was too deaf to hear her heart. I signed the divorce papers, froze her accounts, and ruined her name in every corporate circle from New York to London. I yanked at the bottom drawer of the desk, intending to clear out whatever dust remained. It jammed halfway. I pulled harder, feeling a sharp crack beneath the frame. A false bottom slammed open, releasing a quiet puff of cedar-scented air. Inside lay a single, elegant envelope. My pulse quickened, a sudden, unexplained tremor running through my fingers. I lifted the paper. It was a straight-line keepsake card, custom-pressed with heavy textured cardstock, its edges bound in delicate silk trim. It bore my name in Clara's graceful, sloping handwriting. Dated 5 years ago, the night before I exiled her. I broke the wax seal with trembling breath, and unfolded the thick cream page. My dearest Julian, the note began. If you are reading this, it means you found the truth, or perhaps you never will, and I am simply writing to the ghost of the man I loved. Tomorrow, your board of directors will announce that I sold your life work to the cartel. They will present wire transfers in my name, emails signed from my personal account. I choked back a breath, the room suddenly spinning around me. The letter continued. Do not fight them, my love. They threatened to kill you before sunrise if the leak was not confirmed. The board is controlled by men who sleep with guns under their pillows. If I exposed their frame job, they would have ended your life and burned your legacy to ashes. I had to let them make me the villain, so you could remain the king. The ink on the card was smudged in places, marked by 5-year-old tears that were not my own. She had walked into absolute ruin, accepted the hatred of the world, and carried the weight of my disgust, all to keep a sniper's sight off my forehead. And I had spent 5 years sipping champagne on the bones of her ultimate sacrifice. Silence hung heavy in the penthouse, thick with the suffocating realization of my own arrogance. I looked down at the physical card in my hands, tactile, enduring, holding words that had survived 5 years of dark, lonely darkness. How many of us walk through this life, letting pride build walls around the things that matter most? We let anger speak, while the truth stays buried in forgotten drawers. We wait until the damage is done, until years have slipped away like water through desperate fingers, before we realize that unsaid words are the heaviest burdens a soul can bear. If there is someone in your life who needs to hear your heart, do not wait for a hidden drawer to be found years too late. Do not let silence inherit your love. Straight-line cards allows you to send physical, elegant keepsakes wrapped in timeless craft, delivered directly to the doorstep of those you cherish. You can add your own words, a personal audio recording, or a customized gift that says what your voice could never manage to speak. Visit straightlinecards.com today and bridge the distance before time closes the door forever. Do not let your pride write a story of regret. I slammed the desk closed, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the empty penthouse. I called my private head of security before I even reached the elevator. I gave him one name, one command, and 30 minutes to find her. 2 hours later, I was behind the wheel, driving through a blinding coastal fog 300 miles north of the city. My knuckles were white against the leather steering wheel, my throat raw from breathing in my own guilt. She was living in a quiet seaside town, working at a small, weathered flower shop by the docks. No grandeur. No high-rise security. Just the sound of the ocean and the smell of fresh soil. I stepped out of the car into the damp chill. Through the glass window of the shop, I saw her. Clara. She looked older, lighter, her hair pulled back in a simple linen scarf. There was a quiet grace about her, but her eyes held a lingering shadow that my arrogance had carved into her skin. I pushed the door open, the small brass bell above ringing like a knell. She turned, her smile fading into instant, frozen shock. The shears in her hand clattered onto the wooden counter. "Julian," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the heater. "What are you doing here?" I could not speak. The powerful CEO, the man who dismantled boardrooms with a single phrase, stood paralyzed in the damp air of a flower shop. I walked forward, step by heavy step, until I reached the counter. I laid the straight-line card between us, its cream edges worn from my grip. "I found it," I whispered, my voice cracking, breaking open like dry earth. "I found the false bottom in the mahogany desk. Clara, I found it." Her hand trembled as she looked down at the card. A single tear broke free, trailing down her cheek just as it had 5 years ago. But this time, I did not turn away. I crossed around the counter, dropping to my knees right there on the wet floorboards among the fallen petals. I took her hands in mine, holding them against my face as the tears I had suppressed for half a decade finally spilled over. I spoke through my sobs, telling her that I knew everything. I knew about the cartel. I knew about the threats. I knew that she traded her life so that I could keep mine. I begged her, not for her love, for I knew I did not deserve it, but for her forgiveness. I told her I was a fool who built a fortress out of sand, and lost the only gold I ever possessed. Clara stood still for a long time, looking down at the man who had destroyed her world. Her thumb moved softly, brushing away a tear from my cheek. "It was a terrible secret to keep, Julian," she said quietly, her voice filled with a painful sweetness. "I thought you would never know." I looked up into her eyes, seeing the faint spark of the warmth I thought I had extinguished forever. "It will take a lifetime to repair what I broke," I promised, holding her hands tighter. "But I will spend every second, every breath, every dime, trying to be worthy of the woman who saved my life." She did not pull away. She leaned down, placing her forehead against mine, letting out a long breath that sounded like peace after a 5-year war. The silence was finally broken. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be truly saved.